Hey guys, it's Vlad here. Today is May 5th. My take on current situation, CV19, and I'll be discussing a few updates, a couple of developments, and more than anything, definitely making sure people realize that we must take action, and we definitely need to show up this coming Saturday and every Saturday until this is all finished in terms of the measures of the government. So, from today's development, just quickly some briefings. One would be the federal briefing. Trudeau announced more money every day there's new money that he announced to give to people, and that's great, of course. But people that really understand the policies and economical impact and all that stuff, you can see through the empty actions almost, because when the agricultural sector is asking for billions of dollars and Trudeau announced like 250 million just for a couple of sectors within that industry is just it's nothing. It's just something that people can talk about. He gives just enough so media can discuss it. People can think, well, he's giving millions of dollars, but in a broad spectrum of economical devastation that the whole agricultural sector is going through, and the food chain supply is completely being collapsed at this point. It's nothing. It's very dangerous and very serious matter to think about and discuss. So that was at the federal level announcement. At the provincial level, in Ontario specifically, the doctors, the public health officers for Ontario were talking about the new case studies, and this is definitely for Ontario, guys. I want you to understand that in Ontario, we have right now 1,043 people in hospitals with COVID-19. And that is an increase of 59 people from yesterday, all right? And out of those, 223 people in ICU. So for the whole province of Ontario, we have in hospitals right now 1,043 people. Majority of those people are our elderly population, our risk population. And it's only 59 new people since yesterday. Okay, for 14.5 million of people. And this is really that I've been saying in a couple of comments on my Facebook, and if these public health officers were actually concerned about the safety in all the areas of our health and economical life, they would not be constantly talking about the new cases in total. They would be specifically discussing the new hospitalized cases. Because if you think about this, if we have, for example, in province of Ontario, 300, 400, 500 new cases, it means nothing. What we really need to know, how many of those new 3, 4, 500 cases in the last 24 hours are serious enough to be hospitalized. And the number is 59. But that's just discussed briefly and not even discussed anymore. They have to at least announce it, and that's not announced at the government level. That's just a public health officer briefing, which most people don't even watch those briefings. People definitely want to watch Justin Trudeau, people want to watch Ford, and people want to watch Tory. But those are the numbers that really matter. That, of course, the virus is spreading, but at the same time, how many new people are admitted to the hospital because it's that serious for them. And it's only 59 new people in the last 24 hours in province of Ontario. And this really shows that this virus is definitely blown out of proportion. Okay, all the measures that have been taken for the last 2 months are completely unjustified. All the measures, and they're causing the havoc on health of people because they're not able to access the regular services they were accessing on a regular basis before to maintain their health and immunity. The gyms, the chiropractic services, the homeopathic services, all the natural health services been shut down completely. That's not even discussed at all. So if you think about those, all businesses are collapsing as we speak. Like they're definitely going out of business, if not already. And what's going to happen once we finally are allowed to be open? We don't even have those places to go anymore to actually improve our own health in a natural way. And that's how I look at it. It's premeditated measures of the government to make sure that they destabilize actual healthcare providers, and they put all the focus and all the money and all the investment is being spent on a sick care. And I discussed briefly yesterday $850 million being devoted to the sick care, to development of vaccines and medication, when we have a perfectly good medication, hydroxychloroquine, which is cheap and has been around forever, and we know exactly the side effects and how severe they are. All those things are working, and they've been dismissed completely, but we're going to waste millions and billions of dollars on new developments. Of course, the Bill Gates and the other companies he's involved, all benefiting from that. So it's unacceptable, and again, it's nothing new, unfortunately, that we know that the money definitely ruling the world, and we need to rise up, guys. We need to show the government that we mean business, and we need to definitely come this Saturday. In Toronto, we had, again, about 400 people at one point, and that was a great turnout. I know there was a protest in British Columbia, there was a protest in Ottawa as well, and I think, what the other place, in Manitoba, they had a protest, and that's just in Canada. And at the same time, I shared a quick montage video from this weekend. There's obviously protests all across the United States and people watching that, and that's great. But it's also around the world. Like, there's a protest in Germany, there's a protest in Nigeria, there's a protest in Russia. There are protests out there, and then people waking up and people definitely telling this government enough is enough, and we need to take back the power. The government works for us, and we're definitely being sold. So that's something to keep in mind. On a conversation of this virus and how it's not just blown out of proportion, it's actually premeditated to show false data. The tests, the president of Tanzania, he did a great experiment. He took the tests that were given to him for the country, and he specifically used goats and papaya DNA and whatever in those tests, and then those tests came back positive for this COVID. Like, how bullshit this is. And of course, he right away dismissed the health official in his country that was responsible for developing those tests. Because what we all need to understand, in every single country that's actually going along with these measures of lockdown, of how crazy and severe this pandemic is, the health officials in all those countries are paid money specifically to push this agenda. And that's what people need to realize. When they're taking advice from so-called health experts, they're taking advice from people like Bill Gates and Rockefeller Foundation, who specifically openly talking about depopulating this planet and being able to control everything, controlling the population. And if you guys remember what was happening last year before all this started, we had massive protests all around the world, in Paris, in Hong Kong, in other places. People were protesting the establishment, people were protesting the government, and what a coincidence. There's a new virus going to be released where everybody was going to be forced to be locked down at home and people not able to gather in masses. How appropriate, right? But we are defining this government 100%. For the last 2 Saturdays at Queen's Park in Toronto specifically, we've been covering up and protesting this government. Again, I'm asking every single person who's committed to end this lockdown and can see the measures for what they really are, which is paid by the interests. Our government at the federal level has been sold for sure. Trudeau is implicated in so much bullshit, it's not even funny. And every day when someone even dares him to ask, why don't you investigate what's going on, he dismisses that as it's not important, it's not the right time, it's a racist issue. All the deflection that he's doing is just like, I know he's a drama teacher, so I guess he's educated how to act, and that's maybe the only thing that he's really good at, is to act and try to put a persona of a person that he's not really. He doesn't care about the Canadians, he doesn't care about the Canadian public health. He has obviously specific interests to protect and enforce, and that's what he's doing. On a point of control, guys, already they indoctrinating us, already they putting recommendation into the plans. I looked briefly at the Ontario opening plan. There's a special section there which talking about, let me just actually read this specifically, guys, so you understand. What is it called? So it's called contact tracing. So contact tracing is a great term because it was never used really in public and massively as it's used right now. But let me explain to you what really it actually means, contact tracing. is just another fancy word or phrase for surveillance. So how do you sell something that in the past, if someone would say we need to surveillance all the people that have this virus and how they're contacting everybody, of course there's going to be a lot more backlash against it. But when they create a marketing campaign, and I study marketing, that's why I can see all the different signs, I can see all the different dots, how they connect it. They're creating a marketing campaign to sell you the old agenda that they've been trying to push on people forever, to surveillance, to take away the freedom, to make sure that they can control the humanity. And that's exactly what we're doing with this new fancy term, contact tracing. So whenever you hear contact tracing, or whenever you hear other people talking about, they have to do contact tracing to make sure how this virus is spread, please correct the people. Tell them to use the correct term. It's called surveillance. Okay? And this is, again, all part of the Orwellian world, 1984. I mean, it's all there. The censorship is happening at a massive scale. The taking away the guns is happening at a massive scale, so people actually not able to rise up and fight this government. The control of population is happening at a massive scale. The brainwash is happening at a massive scale. And this is something that's really, really dangerous. And I've been talking about this. The businesses, the small businesses are being economically suppressed because it's the population, specific sector of population that's actually use critical thinking, that actually is able to question the status quo. And they're going to rise up and defend the freedoms, but they've been economically suppressed right now. And this is done premeditatedly, for sure, for sure. I mean, most of the groups I'm a part of that actually see what this is for, most of those people are small business owners within health industry. Like, we are the healthcare providers in terms of alternative options to people, to make sure that we help people with fitness, we help people with nutrition, we help people with creating healthy, active lifestyle habits, and our experts tell people stay home is healthy. It's total nonsense. Let me read you another thing, guys, so you can understand how upside down and twisted this whole world of health experts is. So, so let me read you this. This is actually from a doctor, and then this is what she says. If I wanted to cause myself to be more susceptible to viruses by creating immune dysregulation, I would do the following. I would stay inside and avoid sun exposure, which is vitamin D. I would stay inside and avoid fresh air. I would stay inside and worry constantly, keeping my anxiety and cortisol levels high. I would eat inflammatory foods at essential fast food restaurants, causing GI dysbiosis, gut permanently dysregulation. I would cover my body in toxic sanitizers that destroy my skin's microbiome, the same microbiome that's responsible for maintaining a protective barrier. So whenever you see people constantly using hand sanitizers and wearing gloves and wearing masks, it's all part of actually making us weak and unhealthy. People who are already not getting proper oxygen because their breathing is obviously always a distress for most people because they're stressed out. And now they're forced to wear the mask, so the airflow is obstructed even more for the air, for the lungs and the brains. It creates more unhealthy state. So the other thing, stay inside and not exercise. I mean, again, you can do some exercise at home, but the reality at this point, please tell me how many people are still exercising daily, right? Definitely drink alcohol that is purchased at the central liquor store. So again, the alcohol can be bought, but the gyms has to be closed, right? Continue to take pharmaceuticals that indirectly compromise the immune system as well. Like, I mean, it's again part of the sick care, and that's exactly what we're doing, unfortunately, right? There's a huge scandal is happening in the States, one, where the CDC is actually finally showing the real data. So, the 60,000 of cases of death from this virus in the States is completely flawed. So again, when the government is always talking to us that we don't want to be like another New York, and that's why we have to put all these strict measures, it's total bullshit, right? A lot of those people were put on ventilators as they actually died because of the wrong procedures used in the hospital, because the hospital were making more money. They had direct instruction from CDC that if there's a cause of death that cannot be identified, you actually identified it as COVID death. And that was unacceptable. Like, why would you want to do that? Italy, again, I shared this on April 21st. There's a study that came, and then today I shared a quick clip from an Italian politician, actually, in their parliament, I assume, completely bashing the death rate, the massive death rate that was blown way out of proportion in Italy. And the study from Italy from April 21st that I shared specifically discussed that over 90% of people died not from the virus. They died because they had other conditions. Almost half of those 20 plus thousands of people had over 3 different conditions. And that's what's happening. That people are dying because of other issues, and whether or not they had a virus, they marked as a death from this virus. And that's completely flawed and irresponsible. And again, our governments are using those numbers to justify the current measures that they're implementing. Okay. The other thing that I wanted to discuss would be, let me see here, what else I need to mention. So yeah, going back to the initial thing that I was talking about, I really would like, if again, our public health officers are so concerned about the health of Canadians, and they're so concerned with Canadians dying daily, I would really like to know on a daily basis how many people die from flu, how many people die from pneumonia, how many people die from suicides, how many people die from heart attacks, how many people die from cancer, etc. Nobody canceled any other causes of death for 2020. Why every single day we have to be fear-mongered with how many people even just tested for this virus? Again, it's irrelevant how many people are tested for this virus. What we really need to know is how many people are hospitalized because they're in a serious condition, and how many people are dying. Okay, out of the 1,361 deaths in Ontario, over 1,000 people came from long-term care, guys. Okay, so that's like, those are the numbers, that out of 14.5 million people in Ontario, 1,361 people died, unfortunately, and I'm very sorry. I know people that lost their loved ones, and I know it's happening all across the country, and every single life matters. And over 1,000 of those people came from long-term care homes that were not protected from the beginning properly, and that had nothing to do with everyone else being isolated and their lives being ruined, and people are economically suppressed, they're depressed, people taking extreme measures for their own life and endangering others. And the ramifications, the long-term ramifications, are going to be crazy. People really need to pay attention to what's going to be happening going forward. People die out of hunger, people die out of suicides, and people are going to be dying from medical procedures being cancelled. Again, I've been talking about this almost every time. Over 52,000 necessary hospitalized procedures were cancelled in the province of Ontario. How irresponsible of the public health crisis this is. Like, people really need to understand. The other thing I discussed before, wearing masks, again, is a part of a psychological warfare. They're definitely playing on us, making sure people are scared, making sure people are suppressed. Not a single time I heard our public health officers discussing there's actually a group of population for whom wearing masks on a regular basis is actually endangering their health. So let me be the one telling this to people, and please pass this message. If you have asthma, if you have COPD, which stands for chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, or if you're a pregnant woman, wearing a mask for you is actually endangering your health, and if you're a pregnant woman, you're endangering the health of your child. Not a single time that was discussed by so-called public health officers that wearing the masks for some people is actually endangering their health. Not once. Why? Because again, would go against the agenda that they're trying to push, that everyone must wear masks, right? So by coding the stores that enforcing people wearing the masks, don't do that, because that's not how we change the new norm. How we change the new norm is you go to the stores, and if the clerk is stopping you while you're not wearing a mask, you tell them you have a medical condition that you must have unobstructed airflow for your brain and lungs. And if they tell you what's the condition, tell them I'm sorry, but you're not allowed to ask me a medical question. It's a private matter. And that's it. So as long as you're polite and courteous, you shouldn't have any issues. But we should definitely define the new norm of forcing us wearing masks. The only place, if anyone should wear a mask, if you're working in a hospital and you're working with people that can be sick and all that stuff. So again, I'm going to be promoting the protest on Saturday every single day. The weather is not going to be as great as it was this weekend. However, that should not be deterrent. In fact, if we have more people this Saturday when we had last Saturday, and the weather is not great, that just shows how serious we are taking this, guys. And again, I really would like ask every single person who was there this past Saturday, and let me tell you, the energy was amazing. We had families, we had kids, people were acting normal, like a regular life supposed to be for us, not what our government tells us. They can shut up already. We have a lot of people, great energy. Everyone was happy. Everyone's running around, at least like good back in normal life, right? So I definitely ask every single person who was there, please commit to bring 5 extra people with you. Not that if you're going to be there again this Saturday. That should be definitely happening unless you have something absolutely important and urgent. But again, there's nothing more important in our life. And not just our life. I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing this for my son. He just turned 4 years old, and I'm going to fight to death for him to have a normal life. I do not accept to create this nonsense of reality where he's going to be controlled. He's going to be told that he cannot play with his other kids' friends. He has to have always the hand sanitizer, which is total bullshit. Hand sanitizer for kids, that's how you make them weak, and that's how you make them unhealthy. They need to be exposed to the viruses. We need to be exposed because the immune system being tested on a regular basis. That's how the kids are going to be healthy and live long life. So for this Saturday, if you come in, definitely bring 5 people. I'm personally coming in to bring 10. So if we did have 400 people at one point this past Saturday, and I think that's actually probably what happened, if we each bring 5 people new with us, that's 2,000 people. And think of a statement that we're going to make for this government and already make them shut up, especially in our city of Toronto. The mayor of Toronto, even though our Premier Ford today hinted that we should be allowed to go back to the cottages and everything else for the May weekend, even though, let me remind you, we have a Charter of Rights and Freedom, and we have a freedom to freely move in this country, okay? So do not wait to be allowed to go to your cottage. If you want to go for sure. So Ford already kind of hinted that we're going to have, people allowed to go back outside on a regular basis for the May to 4 weekend. So how come Tory canceled our Canada Day celebration 2 months ahead? Like, what is this guy thinking? I know what he's thinking. He's thinking of creating a dictatorship in the city. And let me tell you, I watched some of the mayors from other city, and I see this as definitely as a real pandemic. Is our hungry politician are hungry for more power, and this cannot be explained like anything else, right? Our Tory is definitely creating dictatorships in the city of Toronto, fencing the trees. Like, it's a total joke and nonsense, total useless amount of money being used on that. Anybody knows how much the rent of fences is on a daily basis? Let me tell you, it's not cheap. So total waste of resources. He hires 2 new advisors, one person that was overseeing the Commonwealth game happening a couple of years ago, which was total waste of money. Barely anybody went to see those games. The city made no money, actually lost a lot of money. So one of those people going to be overseeing the opening of a city, and the other person was overseeing the spread of the SARS pandemic, and that was also like a total disgrace how that was managed. But those 2 people in the next 3 months will make extra $200,000. So I don't know how much everyone's making currently, but those 2 people in the next 3 months combined will make over $200,000. Why? You know how you open the city? You say open, okay? And that's it. You don't need to have councillors and other people trying to pick and choose who can say whatever they want to say. Total waste of money and irresponsible behavior. So again, I see this, I see this in other places. Chicago, I think mayor was a total disgrace and creating a real police state, and that's unfortunate that those people are subjected to someone like that who's so power hungry that, again, Tory passed a unanimous city councillor vote last week giving him unlimited time powers until this pandemic is cleared. And so of course he's gonna declare this is not cleared at least till Canada Day. That's no surprise. So this Saturday it's happening. The weather is gonna be a little bit chilly. That's okay, guys. Dress up warm. Okay, we're gonna be dancing. We're gonna be moving around. We're gonna be making sure that they can hear us. And I really would love to make a walk to Tory Condo right after that. So let me know what you guys think. So, you know, protesting in front of the Queen's Park is great, but I think we should definitely, you know, march to Tory's Condo right after. It's not too far. It's on Bloor. So for us, maybe it will take like, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes walk. And we should definitely yell loud for him to hear. And I'm sure he's going to see some of the news podcasts and broadcasts and whatnot, but I think it's important for us to march to him, and that's it. So yes, this Saturday is happening. I'm going to be promoting it every day. Make sure you bring 5 new people with you. Make sure you dress warm. Bring snacks, bring water. Queen's Park, 12 o'clock. Would love to see you all. Send me messages if you have any questions, and all the other good stuff. Okay, guys, stay healthy, stay blessed. Love you all.